Hello and welcome to another episode of the Opportunity Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Elfrink, the head of marketing over here at Empire Flippers. And today I am speaking with Taylor Kimball. Taylor is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for about a couple years at this point, and he does a lot of foreign SEO. Now, if you didn't see the news and you usually only listen to us through your ears on the podcast or on YouTube, the big news, we have now officially launched the ability for you to sell non-English websites that are at least earning $2,000 a month, just like these are normal minimums on the Empire Flippers marketplace. So if you're building a site in Thai, if you're building a site in French, in German, and it's meeting our minimums, you're more than welcome to come to our marketplace. This is actually something I've been asked for us to do for a long time at every conferences I go to, whether it's in Barcelona and Dubai. People are always wanting to do this. So we are finally allowing it to happen. And with that said, I wanted to bring on some people to showcase how you can do this yourself. So Taylor does not speak Thai or Portuguese. He speaks it like Portuguese, he can say hello and goodbye. Basically, Thai he's a little bit more fluent, but not by much. And I wanted to showcase him specifically on this because he is running some pretty successful brands in these spaces without speaking the language at all. So if you're wondering, like, man, I really wish I could take advantage or like figure out a way to take advantage of foreign SEO, but I don't speak the language of the market I want to go into, this is the interview for you because that's exactly what Taylor did, and he's crushing it. So, with that said, I will shut up and we will get right into the episode. And if you do like this podcast or any of our podcasts, it would be very meaningful for my self esteem if you hit a review on the Apple Podcast or if you just share the podcast with your friends and peers. All right, enough said. I'll see you on the other side. All right, I got my buddy Taylor Kimball here. I'm excited for this man. I know we were trying to get Will on as well, and he vamoosed us. But I am glad you're here because we just launched the ability for people to sell foreign sites, and you're one of the SEOs I know that is doing really, really well with this. And I wanted to bring you on in addition because, like, I know the language of your site isn't like your first language, so I think that is even more interesting. So for my audience, Taylor, who may not know you, give me a brief background on who you are, what you do, and where you're at in the world.
Yeah, so I'm in Chiang Mai, Thailand, kind of the, SEO capital of the world right now. What I do a variety of things. I have foreign language affiliate sites. I do consultations. I'm in a partnership with Don Dykstra right now. I also do sales with Get Me Links. I have a couple courses on IMG. So I'm a bit all over the place. I like to do a lot. So I think that kind of covers what I do and where I am.
Awesome. And so, how did you get into this position of doing so many varied things? Like, what's your background before you got into the SEO world?
Yeah, actually, my background is a private chef. So like totally left field, right? Like I was in the restaurant industry for years, got out of it, did this like digital nomad editor thing online for a while. And yeah, so I was a freelance editor. And then I met Kyle Roof in Yellow here in Chiang Mai. And we had just a mutual love for like fine dining and food, right? So eventually a position opened up at his agency at High Voltage for content manager. And I basically just combined my like restaurant management experience and my editing experience and applied it there. And that was sort of it, right? So that was like 2 years ago. And it kind of just snowballed from there, right? From managing to doing my own sites to doing consultations to getting into foreign SEO. And yeah, here we are today.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize it was that recent when you
Yeah.
joined. For some reason, I thought you were working with Kyle a lot longer than that, but that's awesome. I also was a fine dining chef for a while, minus the fine dining and more of a bowl cook than a chef, but similar. It was in
Okay.
the kitchen on an oil rig, actually. So
That's awesome.
I'm very left field as well. So, with everything you've done and everything you're doing now, tell me about when you decided to venture into the non-English space or the foreign site space when it comes to SEO. Like, how did that start percolating in your head?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like for me, foreign SEO was always the genuinely the only obvious thing to do. And the reason for that is around 2013, I had a friend invite me to Brazil. So I went down to Brazil. He's Brazilian. And we started a business doing like health food workshops and presentations, and an online business just in Brazil. And originally, he had wanted to try to do this in English in the USA. And I'd said to him, like, first off, he's the face of the business and he speaks excellent English, but he's Brazilian, right? So it was like, why would we try to go against all these other people who are doing health food websites and health coaching and workshops in English when the competition in Brazil is so small, right? And so we went to Brazil. We started that, and it was within like 3 or 4 months. We'd been on like a local TV channel. Within 6 months, he had been invited to a convention by the government to speak on like diet and health. Yeah, we were doing like 2-day workshops around Sao Paulo. We were invited to other cities, so like I just saw the growth he had in a very small amount of time by basically becoming the big fish in a quote unquote small pond. But I mean, you have Brazil, it's like millions of people. So that was my first foray to realize like non-English markets are amazing to get into just because the competition is so low, right? So once I got into SEO and you see everyone, is doing affiliate, but even people who are non-native English speakers or English as their second language, they just tend to gravitate to doing English. And so for me, it was just like the obvious choice was, okay, I want to do a site in Portuguese and I'm living in Thailand. I want to do a site in Thai. Why wouldn't I? The resources are here. I can go after bigger niches. I can crush it because of, just like I'm doing SEO every day. And yeah, that was it. It just seemed like I said the obvious step was go with the better opportunity.
I like that, man. It reminds me a bit of something I've said to people like my space that I'm marketing in, to successful entrepreneurs is extremely difficult. But then
Yeah,
you take all that knowledge and you put it into a local plumbing business or something like that. Like I have a friend who has a local business. I was telling him what to do for like 11 different tanning salons, or not tanning salons, nail salons that he owns. And he's
sure.
like, wow, this is wild. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
man. Like when you're going up against like my competition is like the guys like Ty Lopez making a bunch of noise on YouTube ads, and like my target market is entrepreneurs who are jaded to marketing. So like, if you go, you just cut, you get made of a finer cut a little bit. But I like the concept, and maybe you can tell me if this is true or not. But it seems like based on what you said, that you could go into what traditionally would be a very competitive niche, like health and wellness coaching in the English market, and be wildly successful in the foreign market much easier. Would you say that's true for a lot of the like broader, more competitive niches that pretty much all the SEOs are familiar with?
yes, with a caveat, right? As like you can find a slice of the pie that you can go after. Each country is different, right? So like the SERPs and the sites that are being built in Brazil are often significantly different than the strategies I'm seeing working in Thai, right? For these two languages. But overall, it's much easier to find a sort of foothold into that niche. And the other way to see it is like what I've typically found is a lot of the SEO people are doing is really outdated, right? So when my first foray into the Brazilian market is I was just like looking at affiliate sites and I started coming across the sites that were 100% review content. And at first it was like, okay, this site's getting 1 million visitors a month and it's just like best keywords, right? Or review keywords. And they're doing really well. And so I was like, okay, maybe there's nothing here, right? But then like the May 2022 update came and the people were just getting wrecked, like just traffic dropping off a cliff. So then you start seeing, okay, what was working there is not working now. And that's where the opportunity is opening up. So I do think overall there's a much easier way to get into it, but you still need to find like how do I step in, right? It's not like health and wellness or finance or sports betting. It's not that nobody's doing it. It's just that it's easier to get a foothold in when you find your sort of leverage to start.
That makes total sense. And just for the audience to know, do you speak Portuguese or Thai? What's your level of fluency in the language?
Survival. I mean, like, let me put it this way. I'm in Thai. I'm at like I can flirt with you and I can travel alone. In Portuguese, I could travel alone in Brazil, but I haven't been there in 4 years, 5 years now. So like I can basically say hello, goodbye, and like I can speak no Portuguese. So no, I'm not writing right. I can't see when things are wrong. Like I'm definitely I'm terrible in those languages.
I'm glad you saw that. This is another reason I wanted you on because I feel like a lot of SEOs who are looking at this are like, "There's just no way I could do it because I just don't speak the language." But
Sure.
I feel like there's so many tools out there, so many ways you can go about it to do it. So let's talk about that. So, what kind of systems have you built that might be, I don't know, maybe they're exactly the same for a normal like English affiliate site, but what kind of systems have you put in place that allows you to operate these foreign language sites that you're not fluent in?
I would say, like, the biggest difference is less of a system and more of a who. So you really need to find that person who's like, they're your point person for that language because they will start to understand the intricacies and the specifics around the keyword research, what's working, what's not, the tone of language for the content. They are like your person who does the thing, right? You can be the strategist, but they need to be your person. So the systems stay relatively the same. I've started playing a lot more with AI in recent weeks, whereas before AI just wasn't good enough for foreign languages, at least not for Thai. Brazilian, it was okay. The systems mostly stay the same. The biggest difference is like you're a lot more hands off because you can't see the title, right? I don't know if the title is correct. I don't know exactly the keywords. I can use Google Translate for this and that, but it's super limited and the translations aren't great, especially when you get outside of like Latin and Roman based languages. So for
Yeah.
Thai, it's garbage. So it's again, it's less of a what and more of a who. You just need to find that person who you can either train and trust, and you work with them to basically become your person on that project.
It's funny. My brother-in-law, he's starting a mobile coffee shop here in Saigon, and I was talking to him about business a bit. And he doesn't speak very good English at all, and
Mhm.
so I opened up ChatGPT and I wrote out a whole business plan for him in Vietnamese. And
Yeah,
I was like, "Huh, I wonder how that went." So I asked my wife, like, "What? How does this read?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, that reads pretty good." And I was shocked because like Vietnamese is usually one of the worst translated languages if you use any kind of device. Like Google Translate will make all Vietnamese sound like they're saying nonsensical poetry. Like you might
exactly.
ask them, like, "How was your day going?" Like, "Oh, I'm doing really good." And the translator, like, "I was dancing in the wind, and the leaves fell in the pond." Like, what the fuck does this mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's cool that the systems are the same. And when it comes to that point man or point woman, is that a difficult hire? I mean, it sounds like they're kind of like a project manager where they have to be fluent in English to understand what you're saying, but then they also need to be pretty quick on their feet to learn all the SEO stuff as well.
Yeah. You know, I think I've been super lucky. Like with one of my sites, the project manager just happened like if you haven't read the book Who, like if you're going to get into foreign SEO or you're moving trying to be like I want to build a team, the book Who is just like outstanding to find that person, right? So you really just need to find that one person to start. I got very fortunate with one of my hires that he submitted a resume to a different position to an editor position, and when I got through his stuff, I was like this is the guy. I need to call this guy, right? So like I called him and I was like you're the person. I want you. And he's been an A player, right? Like he's been an A player and he's just like crushed it and taken over everything. He had no SEO background. With my Thai one, even that one was sort of like I stumbled into it. I had a personal assistant here who was good and she wanted to kind of grow beyond the assistant role, right? So I started training her on SEO to do like smaller things. And then slowly I was like, you know what, let's do a site. And then just like through friends, I've met other people and brought them on board. I mean, this sounds a bit odd, but I think people in SEO will understand. One of my hires in Thailand, her background is she went to school to be a mechanical engineer, right? And like
Mm.
Daisy's background as an engineer, there's a lot of people in this space who have like engineering or mechanical backgrounds or computer science backgrounds. So I look for those people, right? I think that they just have the brain of understanding the details and how things fit together. So I can't really speak like, oh, it's been super hard because for me, it's been super easy. Like I've been fortunate, right? But I would
Two
say like
simple steps.
yeah, like I'm lucky. I'm just super, literally the first person I interviewed for one of my sites. That was it. It was done. So like I'm probably not the best person for that advice, but I would say you'll know fairly quickly. Like I've had a lot of unreliable hires for like content writer positions, uploaders, editors. So I know it's difficult. I was just fortunate on the point person. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I think it could be hard. Like you could get lucky like you, but
Yeah.
I don't think it would be that hard to do it. I feel like because a lot of those guys are already looking for work on sites like Upwork, anyways, usually in
Exactly.
English. So like, I feel like it wouldn't be insurmountable to do. But let's talk a little bit about the audience differences here. So your sites in Portuguese and your site in Thai, like, have you noticed any behavior differences in how the customer journey is kind of working from how they're consuming the content and clicking on the link from, say, the more English markets, or is it relatively the same?
I think overall it's relatively the same. I can speak more on the Thai one because this is actually something that I noticed a lot more recently. So it seems to me, and it's just like what I'm seeing, seems to me that Thai people are much more likely to use like YouTube for informational queries or friends, or they even like do a lot of native buying and purchasing via like Twitter or Instagram, right? Like I have friends who just shop tons on these platforms. So I've noticed that in terms of like doing keyword research around like informational queries and writing that, there's significantly less. Like search volume just isn't there as much, right? People are typically looking to make a purchase. So there's a lot like the speed at which people just come to review, like which brand is good, best this, top these. it's just significantly faster for people to go there. So there's almost a much shorter buyer's journey because I think that they're not really going to Google to look up something like, they're not going to Google to look up like how to do a deadlift, right? They're there to be like best weightlifting shoes.
That's fascinating. I think people who do like TikTok is becoming a big place for English search queries now. And
Exactly.
I always like boggles my brain. Like I'm not on TikTok for one. I probably should get on to learn it, but like how are they doing? Like if I was searching for that on Instagram, like a local plumber or whatever, like I just feel like this would be awkward. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
seems easier to do it on Google. But
Yeah.
that's fascinating. I know the Vietnamese people, they do a lot of Facebook Live and Zalo Live. Like so that's huge. I'm pretty sure that's pretty big in Thailand too where they like
Yeah.
present the
Even
products, all that kind of stuff.
even the native platforms here like Lazada and Shopee, like they have people who are just live stream on their platform directly, right? So like, yeah, it's just a different marketplace, it's a different vibe. And this is a comment that always comes back to me from my Thai staff. So we've been doing like some experimenting with really long form articles, super in depth, right? And one of the girls was like, nobody's gonna read this. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, is it bad? And she's like, no, no, no. Like, she's like, it's really good. But like, we don't want to integrate this is very generalization. So I'm not going to, this is a Thai person saying, she's like, we don't want to read all this information. We just want the information. So we're going to go to YouTube to find our answer and we're going to listen to it. And then we're going to make our buying decision. And I was like, okay, well, but from a search engine standpoint, right? Like I still want to have that. I still want to have that piece of content on my site, regardless of if people are going to read it or not, so on and so forth. But yeah, so she openly said, like, we're looking, and she's my target market, right? Of what I'm going for. She was just saying, yeah, like this is just not what most people are going to go and look at. So I found that
Yeah.
super interesting.
I mean, that sounds like an opportunity then for you to just like basically get a video done in Thai on YouTube. Like
Yeah.
I have a friend, she does about, I think you know her actually, Sushi. She lives in Chiang Mai. She does really, really well with these like Amazon affiliate YouTube videos, basically. But they don't even get that many views, but she's just crushes it. It's like she doesn't even have a
Sure.
website. Oh, she might have a website nowadays, but she bought a YouTube channel from us and just scaled it to the moon, doing all these different product reviews. That might be something to look into.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you, and this seems to be a problem in the foreign space, depending on your market, like every market is a bit different. It just seems like there's less opportunities in terms of like affiliate networks and display advertising. Like it feels like you're more limited like on the display ads like okay I'm just going to be doing Google AdSense or in Southeast Asia the big Amazon competitor de facto Amazon the space Lazada it feels like that's the only one. Is that true? Do you find yourself like more limited in the actual affiliate opportunities with your Portuguese and Thai site?
For sure. So like Brazil, Amazon's down there, right? And actually have at least last time I checked that their commissions were quite a bit better than what's happening in the English market. So that's nice. But there is no Amazon here, right? So it's like Lazada, Shopee. It's getting better. For Asia, there's a company called Involve. And they have a lot of partners. So like they have Watson's, which is like a pharmacy slash beauty store. They have Central, which is kind of like I guess a Sears or JC Penney's like a department store. They have a lot of affiliate offers through there. So that's kind of like the hub, and that's been nice to see. The challenging part is to find like companies here that would have like much higher commissions, right? So one thing that we're starting to experiment with is outreaching to like local Thai brands and smaller companies based here to establish private affiliate deals. Just because they're just not out there, right? Like it's just not the biggest market yet. So that's challenging. As far as display ads go, it's a similar situation. So there is a few ad networks here in Asia, but so far I haven't really pursued it much because I haven't heard anyone who's like, "Oh, this ad network is awesome." So I'd like to. If anyone knows of like, "Oh, it's great," then I'll jump on it. But that's just kind of like on our reserve of like, okay, at some point we'll dive deeper into this. But yeah, I mean, it is challenging, and I think you do need to be potentially a bit more creative with your monetization. But I think that there's a lot of opportunities to like work with local companies, work with smaller brands, do partnerships, pay for placements. So, it's like, hey, you want to stay number one? We'll put you at number one for this review as a small brand for this price. And yeah, so there's options out there.
Awesome. I love your going out there and doing your own private or trying to do private affiliate deals. That's actually something I preach. I believe Diggity
Sure.
also talks about it a lot. I think it's just super smart. There's so much software out there now. I imagine it would work in the Thai market, it works in the English market, that where you just set up like basically an out of the box affiliate, like very
Yeah.
simple referral campaign, like software, right? Then you could
Yeah.
probably even charge for the service of doing that for them, depending on
That's
the
true.
deal. Talk to me about conversion. So from a Western perspective, when they're thinking of Thailand, one of the things they're thinking of, like, oh, it's cheap, similar to Brazil. Like, it's cheap cost of living, like everything is inexpensive. So from that perspective, with the bot being weaker than the USD, how is it for time for money? Like, is the conversions, is there a lot more conversions coming in, or how does that ratio play out in your head versus the English markets?
So that's a good question. Like the products that we're selling, the marketplaces aren't different, right? So like the price someone's going to pay for, let's say, a product on Amazon of a brand is the same the price they're going to pay for the most part of a product on Lazada or Shopee. And their conversion or their commission rate is a bit higher. So even though this bot is different, like I specifically target sort of like high society niche where they have money. So they're not afraid to just like buy the product, right? And there's still a lot of like Western brands who do really well. I have noticed that. So I'll run a lot of like Facebook ads and Google ads for new pages, just start getting traffic to them. And on those ones, there'll be a lot of conversions on sort of like the lower end products, right? People just like impulse buying really quick. And I don't mind that. I like that. But in terms of like the conversion rate, I don't really see one difference or another. But like, as far as, and this is a tangent, as far as just like ads go, the cost of spending an ad to getting a click is so cheap, and also just for the conversion rate from that. So yeah, I mean, if you're buying like smaller products, or sorry, if you're promoting like local cheap products, it's going to be a bit more challenging. You can typically make up for it in volume, but you can go after the American brand or like the Western brands that are just 3,000 bot. I guess what, like $100, and that's going to be the
Mhm.
same anywhere. So
When you told me about your site, I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. But like, I also totally believe it because it's similar to Vietnam. Like, they love those type of products and they're willing to
yeah,
spend big money on it. So let's move into kind of the more user friendliness of this. So you mentioned AI earlier.
yeah.
Are you now using AI to write your content?
Actually, this is something we've started experimenting with a lot more this week. Literally, like in the last like
Oh,
4 or
so
5
very
days.
new. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I kept trying to make it work before. I think it was when GPT-3 was out. I just kept asking, like, because I was using it in English, and I have a course on Internet Marketing Gold about this. So the more content I can do, the better, especially in foreign SERPs where backlinks aren't as big of a deal. We just couldn't make it work, right? Like talking with the staff, talking with the girls, it was always like, nah, because like for anyone who's is, I mean, probably most people aren't familiar with Thai. There's like the formal version, the informal
What? What
version.
do you mean? Everyone's
Yeah,
familiar
right.
with Thai.
The fluctuations on it, like how you write things. So like our way of writing is this very informal, very friendly, like casual chat, right? And the
Yeah.
AI just couldn't do it. And so the staff was always like, no, like it's going to take us longer to just literally have to rewrite all of this than to write it. And also the other thing to keep in mind is like you can pay people really well here and it still can be really cheap compared to writers abroad. So it just didn't make
100%. Yeah.
sense. Right now, there's a tool I've been playing with called Koala. John turned me onto it, and this is the first time where like I have actually like my staff is like, this is good. We should be using this, right? They're like, it's better than a first draft. It can get the tones we're looking for, and it's just editing. So yeah, so we've started playing with it. I mean, I'm super impressed with the tool. So it's brand new for us. There's still limitations because like in some cases, the existing content, especially like around informational queries, as I mentioned, they're not always super in depth. So it's like, where's the AI pulling its data from? Because like this tool can go to the SERPs and like scrape and see what's there and write from it, right? And in some cases, just not that good. But for me, it's just a big step forward from where we were before. Like the fact that we even have it and can use it now. And I'm sure like we are using it in South American languages as well, like Spanish and Portuguese. So definitely like romance languages are going to be much easier to use versus I'm
Yeah.
playing on hard mode, right? Like Chinese are probably pretty challenging as well. But yeah, I think like Julian Golding has a video now on his channel where he used Surge Ignite, I think, to do like 1,000 French language articles on AI and they started ranking
Oh,
within
I
like
think I
7 hours.
saw that. I just recently found his channel. My YouTube channel, dude, is like a mixture of Warhammer lore and AI tools. Like, it's
Yeah,
like
tell me about
split
it.
down the middle. So I
Mine's
just
all like,
discovered Julian. I like his
yeah,
videos.
lo-fi and then like SEO. And right
Yeah.
now it's all AI because like no, everybody just talks about AI, right? So yeah, like Julian's a good example. And like anyone just watch that video, it's pretty interesting. So I do think AI is an option. That being said, I think that there is significant limitations. Like for me, and what my staff has said is like, at least in Thai, it's not like a publish the AI or like click the AI, create it and publish it, right? Like it's not going to get your brand tone. It's not going to get certain things. It still needs work. So you still need to have like some human people human people, robot people, human people working
You
working
get
for you
auto
to really get
GPT to
that
fix
fine
auto
tune.
GPT.
Soon enough, we'll all be robot people. It's fine. It's coming. It's coming.
That's awesome. That's cool. I'm very curious on how that is going. And also for anyone in our audience that's doing any kind of AI, if you have a case study, please email me. I would or like shoot me a message because I'm thinking about putting together like a case study or not a case study, but like a data analysis of like how much AI is working or not for people. I feel like people are at once like overhyping it and underhyping it at the same time. It's very divisive right now. But
Oh yeah.
I'm very curious to see how that pans out for you. You mentioned earlier as an offhand comment that backlinks aren't as important in foreign SEO. Why do you find that as just less competition, or why is that?
I mean, I don't know if it's less competition per se, and I should caveat as like it's not always less important, right? But for example, in Thai, there's just less options for quality links. So I'll see sites ranking, and I'll look at their backlink profile, and it's like, man, I would never get a single link from any of these sites if this was an English one. Like I would disavow immediately. Like it just wouldn't be worth it. And it's not that some of them are PBNs for sure, not all of them, right? It's just like the quality is so low, and like you just need so much less to rank in general because the market just isn't as developed here, right? Brazil's a bit more competitive. I'm sure as you get like, I don't know how to put it other than like the closer you get to the English language in your foreign language, the more it's going to be more like traditional SEO, right? Like Google's updating its algorithm over time, and I'm sure it's prioritizing some languages over others. And this is just something that I've been exploring a lot more lately. So I know Diggity says that he did a single variable test around information gain where he feels like it wasn't that big of a factor. And maybe it's not in English, but one thing I've noticed a lot in Thai specifically is I've seen sites. So, like, Hrefs metric will say, like, oh, the keyword difficulty of this is like 0, right? But I'll look and most people will be like DR 70, DR 60, DR 80. Then occasionally you'll have one person who's like a DR 0 or DR 2. And they're not just being tested in the SERPs, they stay there, right? They'll be in position 5, position 6. But what you see is that compared to the other sites, they've gone really deep in their content. So they'll cover everything the other sites do and then like much more. So this was the first time that I started thinking like, okay, is this just because they're like covering the topic fully, or is this information gain patent that's kind of floating around there where it's like they're crushing it in terms of the topical coverage for that specific topic compared to everyone else. So that's why they're there, even if they have literally zero backlinks to their site. So again, that's speculation on my part, but it is just something I've started to explore.
That's interesting. For my audience who are not familiar with the information gain term, like I've only recently started hearing about the term myself. I'm not as hardcore SEO as I used to be, but
Sure.
information gain, that just means like new keywords appearing in the niche, more or less. Yeah.
New keywords or the idea like so your site needs to cover or your page needs to cover like the topics that all your competitors top cover on that page, right? But then it's
Gotcha.
like, why would Google index all the page if the content is the same as everybody else? If you can add new information that isn't there before, then why wouldn't Google prioritize that? Now again, Matt says he tested this and he didn't find it to be a ranking factor, but I believe he may have used English. So this is the first time I'm really starting to explore it, so it's very tentative for me as well.
I can't believe Matt's not testing all the languages. So much bias.
I mean, with 1,000 affiliate sites, what can you do?
No, that makes sense. I could see it probably not working as well in English, probably because of the competitive nature of it. I mean, there's
For
maybe
sure.
it does work, but it's like such a small signal that is like just lost to the noise. But
That's exactly what I think as well.
yeah. I like the this goes back to what you were saying earlier with the Lazada and Shopee with the higher payouts and the higher payout in Brazil with Amazon. A lot of times these affiliate programs are like well established, do have better payouts than like Amazon associates. Like even UK Amazon has better
Yep.
payouts than the USA Amazon. I still have friends who are just crushing it and they're still addicted to the Amazon Associates program over in the UK because they haven't been like just destroyed like what Amazon did
For
to the
sure.
US market.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds like I would like to get out of I want more options, right? Like any affiliate networks, if you're listening, we want more options. I mean, like we were at Affiliate World, right, this year, and I was just like going to all the booths and being like, "Are you in Asia? Like, what niches are you in? What geos are you in?" And just trying to find other ones to partner with. And I mean, that's primarily display ads and like paid traffic. So when I was like, "Oh, I do SEO," people were like, "SEO?"
Get away from me.
No, genuinely. One guy was like, "Oh, I only want really qualified leads," and I was like, "Bro,
Yeah, the Affiliate
what's
World
more
crowd does
qualified
not
than
listen
someone
to
who's literally
SEO.
typing your product name and review? Like that is the most qualified you're gonna get." So I think the market's only going to grow here. And that's sort of like my idea in general is like find the opportunity that's there. And even if you're a bit early, I'd rather be early to the party like than late to the party. So,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I was talking to a guy. He owns an affiliate network. It's like one of the oldest affiliate networks. I think it's A4D. And I asked him like, so what do you think of SEO? He's like, not enough scale. Like, they just want like put it on Outbrain, put it on Taboola, drive millions of clicks.
yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah, I think you're right. Like Southeast Asia in particular, I think is going to come up and be a very good geo down the road. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the setup. In my experience, when it comes to backlinks, like we get foreign sites that get submitted, and we used to not allow them onto the marketplace until
Sure.
obviously now. But in my experience, what you said is correct. Like it doesn't seem like there's that many opportunities in these different geos. But what I've seen people do that I think is interesting, and maybe you have some experience with this, is they will go and build backlinks on an English website to their foreign site. So like
Yeah.
all the backlinks are often in English when our vetting team is like looking at it, which I think is quite interesting. Do you do anything like that as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, this is something that we're doing now and we're playing with, especially in non-English language ones. Like in Brazil and like Spanish and French, you're gonna have plenty of options, right? But in Thai, it's gonna be much more limited. So yeah, this is something I do. I always try to get like a base layer of local sites first, right? So like I'll do all my local citations. I'm trying to get a number of links locally. I'll even branch out of Thailand and just try to do like Singapore, Vietnam, just get around the area first. But then you're gonna run out of options. So at that point, yeah, I'm looking at like, okay, English language ones and just trying to get those links. Yeah, I think it's a viable opportunity to go after for sure.
Interesting. So let's say you're giving advice to someone who does not speak foreign language, but they want to get in it, either starting a site from scratch or they are looking to buy one that's maybe now live on our marketplace by the time this recording is live. But what kind of advice would you give to them? Like, what kind of challenges would you tell them to be aware of as they get into a foreign market?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess like if you're buying the site, right? Let me address this in two ways. If you're going to buy a foreign language site, at least in my experience, because you essentially have to act as like the captain of the ship and the strategist, you shouldn't just be buying the site. You need to buy the team behind it. Because like what happens, right? So like you buy the site, if you don't buy the team, essentially you need to build one because what are you going to do? Like, are you just going to let the site stop? So, I mean, like, okay, you bought the site and now it's just kind of a dead asset that's just going to depreciate over time. No, you need the team. So that's the biggest one is like, I think the approach is going to be either A, you already have an internal team that you've built and now you're buying these sites and you're letting your internal team take care of them. Or B, you need to be looking to make sure you have the team in place who can keep the site going, keep it growing, right? I think that's a big one to think about. Like, I'll be honest, if my Thai staff just like all quit, my site's over. Like, I can do nothing. I'm literally incapable of doing anything on that site. Like it's true. Like, I'm more on the strategist side. I'm saying this is where we're going. Here's the topical silos we're covering, but I rely on them 100%. Like I'm indebted to them immensely for what they do. So that is a huge challenge. Like, you can't just buy the site and be like, oh, I can look and start fixing on it. So even that, right? Like, outside of the metrics, if I'm going to buy a site, I want someone who's fluent in that language to start looking through that site, to be familiar with the culture. And that's another one, which I think is kind of this intangible aspect. Without going too deep into it, like within the niches that I'm in, there is aspects of the culture that are important to keep in mind when you're writing the content, when you're designing the site, when you're building the user journey. It's not a hard metric, right? It's not something that you can be like, oh, it's this, this, this. It's more of a cultural side. So you need that person who understands the culture that you're writing for, especially something like Thai. So yeah, I think it's really like it's about partnerships with people is in key. And if you're thinking of starting a site, it's going to be the same thing. Like find that one person, right? And the trick for me is like you can pay people much better for still a really low cost. If you're doing like economic arbitrage, right? Like, okay, I'm going to pay you this much and it's still a good price for me, but for them, it's great. And then you train them well and they'll stick around. If you really want to just like dive in, watch some of Julian's videos, see what he's doing, play around with it. And then if you've proven to yourself, okay, I want to do foreign SEO, then get yourself on Upwork or get yourself on the Facebook groups and start saying like, hey, I'm looking for someone who is a native speaker of this and wants to learn SEO. And that's kind of the other one too, which is a bit tricky. And I probably differ than some people there. I like to hire people who maybe aren't trained or like don't have much of a background in SEO digital marketing, so then I can train them in my processes, right? And I can bring them up to speed quickly. So yeah, I think that's the advice I would give is like, don't be afraid to try it, but it's not really something to do long term on your own. You need to find that partner for you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I've seen it so on like higher end businesses, like five, seven, $8 million businesses that we sold. It's not terribly uncommon for the buyer to be working. Like this might seem like a weird thing for them to do, but as they're doing their due diligence on this like multiple seven figure or sometimes even eight, actually it's more common in the eight figure range. Like while they're looking to buy the business, they're at the same time like talent hunting for the CEO that they're going to put on
Yeah.
top of the business. So
Yeah.
if you're a buyer looking at those, like there's nothing stopping you from like in tandem searching for that person while you're looking at say a foreign site. And I think it'll be easier than hiring a CEO because those guys are tough to get. But yeah, that's definitely a strategy. I think you're absolutely right on that. Like having that point person is so important with foreign SEO. Like really so important in any business because like if
For
you're
sure.
looking to sell your business and get the biggest value possible, I always joke you should become the most useless player on your team, right? Like what you doing, right? You're the strategist, right? But without them, there's like nothing. And to me, that is a sign of a very good business where the employees make up the value share more so than the founder, right? Because I, as a buyer, like, oh shit,
Yep.
that's a great investment because the founder's not going to be around once they acquire, right? So yeah, that's good advice. Outside of that, how are you analyzing foreign sites in terms of what you're going to improve upon them? So you already mentioned competition is lower, backlinks
Mhm.
are less needed.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you're analyzing in terms of the SERPs of how to make this work?
Yeah. So, I mean, a big one for me is like two things. One is like looking for keywords where the content is just like really low quality, right? And I see that a lot is like you'll see pages ranking for it, but it'll be like 300 words or it'll be like just pictures. So to me, I'm like, okay, this is an obvious opportunity. Like, let's go after this, right? Or another one that I look for a lot is sites that are ranking for a topic that they cover just once. I'm trying to think of an example without giving away my niche.
What's
So,
your
okay,
niche?
Okay, so for example, right? Imagine you had a site that's all about yoga. I mean, so these are like peripherally related, right? So it's all about yoga, but then for whatever reason, there's a single page about like how to play baseball. And I see this, right? So here's this site about this topic, but their page on how to play baseball ranks really well. I'm looking for those opportunities where it's like, why is this baseball page ranking? And they've covered nothing else. There's no silo, there's no interlinking. So to me, right, like I typically go after broader niches. So I can do this where it's like this is a shoulder niche, and this is kind of a terrible example because yoga and baseball are not really related at all. But I'm looking for that. Like, okay, if this site's ranking, they've got nothing else on this topic. It's much easier for me to come in and say, we're gonna do topical coverage on this, right? We're gonna do like all the articles really fast. So I look for that as well, just to see like where the opportunities are. Yeah, and then, like, the truth is, it's not that different than, like, normal SEO, right? Of, like, okay, where can I get the edge? Is it site design? Is it speed? Is it, like, the quality of the content? Is it the images? So, I feel like it's overall pretty much the same, but I'm definitely looking for opportunities around, like, content-based strategies and, like, topical strategies. Yeah.
That's something I didn't ask you. Topical maps are all the rage nowadays, which I've always been a fan of that. Like before that was like in our lexicon as SEOs. How's the content velocity in foreign sites? Like when you start your Thai site or your Portuguese site, are you like putting up 200 articles as fast as possible? Did you find you need less articles? Talk me through that process.
Yeah, the Taiwan was a bit tricky, right? And this is actually the one I've struggled the most with. So, I think we launched with only, like, 50 articles. And then we kinda had to reevaluate, like, they were indexing really well within, like, a couple hours of being live, right? Indexed, getting impressions, page 2 right away. But the tricky part was, like, noticing over time that there was some gaps in my staff's knowledge on, like, on-page optimization, and this is no reflection on the tools out there, but, like, a lot of the tools for SEO are very much designed for English language and, like, Latin Roman languages, right? So they don't
Right.
do as well for symbol-based languages or whatever you'd call it. So, yeah, so that was a bit of a challenge of, like, just kind of re-going through everything. With AI, now we're looking at really ramping up the speed and the velocity, but no, I don't think we need to publish more. And the tricky part of that is something I've seen a lot happen. I'll see sites that have like 2,000 pages, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a massive site. But then you get into Ahrefs and SEMrush, you start looking around and you realize like out of those 2,000, there's only 50 that are driving traffic to the site. So
But those
this isn't
2,000 could
this.
probably be combined significantly as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, right. And so like I saw this time and again, and so that was a precaution that I wanted to take is like I don't want to waste time or budget on pages that aren't going to rank, right? So like I'm always considering like is this page necessary for us to build? Because I don't need a 500 page website, but only 30 of my pages actually get keywords and rank for anything. Like, what are the other ones doing for me? And yeah, someone might argue, oh, they're giving you topical relevancy. It's like, no, no, no. I don't think that's the case. I think that they're just badly done pages, right? Or maybe there's just no search volume around it, or you've done it poorly. Something's keeping that from holding it back. So, yeah, like that's the other one is like, especially with like using human writers, I'm much more cautious in making sure that the page we produce is a valuable page and that it will get traffic than just like, I don't do mass pages yet. So maybe we'll
Yeah.
talk in 6 months and I'll be like,
Soon.
screw what I said before. Mass page building's the way to go. AI everything. But for now, it's like, if I build a page, I want it to bring in traffic. That's the value of it.
Right.
So it's an asset. Yeah.
I'd be curious on how Koala Writer works out for you on that. I've heard of that. I've never played around with. I'm a big fan of ZimWriter. I don't know if you use ZimWriter in foreign language market or not, but I saw some people recently in his group that came over from Koala Writer to use ZimWriter. But I don't know if they do foreign stuff with that or not. But if you haven't tried it, I would recommend it. I think it's a really cool
Yeah.
tool.
It's funny you said that. So like, I think it was at SEO Saigon. Someone told me about it. And I was like,
Probably
oh,
me.
let me
I've
get it.
been promoting this guy's tool for months.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like I checked it out because there's that awesome lifetime deal, and like everyone who's used it has been like, sorry, I almost cursed. I don't know if I'm allowed to.
I cursed earlier on this podcast. It's totally fine.
Okay, yeah, perfect. No, no, no. Like they said, like, oh, it's amazing. So I started checking it out for the lifetime deal because I just love the model and I love the idea of it. And at that time, it said like it's only English language. But I have a friend here who's American, but he lives here, and he's started using it for Thai, and he said like, it's pretty decent. So I haven't checked it out myself, but he said like overall it's not bad. The thing I like with and again I haven't played with this, so I can't say the thing I like with Koala is its ability to do Amazon roundups. So you can give it like
Mm.
a name and you can say like get me 10 products and it'll choose the products and it'll get the picture and all this stuff. So we're sort of experimenting with like how do we automate that process as much as possible. But
You
yeah, Zim is
definitely
on
should
my
try
list of
Zim.
tools to look at.
So they just updated it. I don't know how it fully works, but you can basically paste like the Amazon ID or really any URL you want, and it'll read the whole thing. And so some of the people in the group, they're like letting them read all the reviews of the Amazon products and then making the pros and cons based on the aggregate of what the positive and negative things people are saying to build like their entire pros and cons like tables and stuff like that, which
That's
really
awesome.
impressive. And like
Yeah.
I'm just impressed with the tool because it's made by like one dude. He's a really nice guy. So give it a shot. To let me know. Either way,
Yeah,
I'd be curious on how the AI
I'll
stuff
pick
goes.
up the tool just to have it because again, I like the idea. I love the idea of like a single creator just like building this thing and crushing it.
Oh yeah, he's definitely crushing it at this point.
I've
It's
only heard
huge.
positive things. I haven't heard a single person be like, "Zim Rider shit, everybody likes it." So, yeah, I'll pick it up after the podcast today.
I don't know if you were around in these days, but when I first started SEO, there was like tools like SE Nuke and like it was really janky UI. You got unique article wizard and like GSA Sir. It reminds me a bit of those days because the user interface is just so like this was definitely made by one person. This
Yeah.
UX is like a bit wonky, but I really like the tool. It's cool. All right, I have one more question for you, then I want to move into the rapid fire. So, with your experience, what trends are you foreseeing taking place in the foreign SEO market? Is it similar to what's happening in the English, just a few years behind, or is there something else on the horizon?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be similar to that. I mean, like, in my experience, there is a lag, right? So, for a long time, you could just have, like I mean, like, anyone can find this out, right? So you can look at a lot of foreign languages, and you'll see that there's still really big sites that are just, like, general review sites. Best I think one is, like, Best Asia, Best Reviews Asia, or Best Asia. So there's this site, it's, like, massive.
I
It
think I know
reviews
that
everything.
site actually. Yeah,
Huh?
I'm pretty sure I
Yeah.
know that site. Yeah.
It literally covers everything, right? And, like, these sites they just don't work as well in English anymore. They did, but it's same in Brazil. There's a site around there, and the translated name, if I remember, is literally, like, the guide of the best. And you'd click on it, and it would cover everything, but it was pure review. There's no information. Those sites were doing really well, up until a couple of years ago, and they still do well, right? They still rank really good overall, but a lot of them have like been hit massively and they're just like bleeding traffic. So I think, yeah, we'll continue to see like more niche sites taking over, sites that are doing like topical coverage, especially I would imagine as AI rolls out and it's like looking to see who is actually like quote unquote authority in this space that I can pull my answers from that I should rank for people. So I see that. The other one I've seen is I've noticed a lot of sites getting just kind of wrecked when they just have pure money content, just review content. So either A, the result is like either go back and improve your review articles to have a lot more informational content in that review itself, or you start building informational pieces. So yeah, like our approach internally is like do SEO as you would on an English site, but keep in mind the limitations. So there is some cases where it's like, okay, I would never do this on the English site, but because this is what works in Thai or in Portuguese, I'll do this now. So I think it's just going to follow the same trajectory, just a few years behind.
Yeah, from my experience of using Vietnamese internet, I would agree with you. Like Vietnamese websites, they remind me of like very early 2000s websites where
Yeah.
the ads are just like everywhere. It's like this, you just drink like this shot of chaos going onto one of these websites. It's just
Yeah.
like the pop-ups are in your face. It's wild. All right, man. Well, we've reached the end. Are you ready for the rapid fire section?
Okay, sure. Let's do it.
All right, no pressure, but these are the most important questions. So if you fail here, will our mutual friend Will Tribe will be very upset.
I imagine so.
All right, what are the best hidden growth opportunities for foreign sites today?
Oh man, I would say just like figuring out how to integrate other traffic channels. So I realize that's not an SEO answer, but like TikTok is huge here. Instagram is huge here. So I think like looking at how can I bring in traffic from social media and probably do like less of just a review site or whatever, like really go off after a brand play. That's typically what I'm doing. It's like I'm building brands, right? SEO is my main medium of traffic right now, but we aren't ignoring like social networks. So I think like that's huge. And it's so cheap just to do like advertising and sponsored posts for those.
I absolutely love that answer. I'm always begging my SEO friends to expand your traffic sources. So that's a great answer. What tools or resources would you recommend for someone who wanted to learn how to do foreign SEO effectively?
Honestly, I don't even know if there's a resource out there. I mean, like become friends with Will Tribe. That's it, right? No, that's a joke. That's a
Everyone
joke.
sent him a message on Facebook right now. He's going to wonder what happened on this podcast.
Right.
I'm
So
like,
so I,
oh
I
my
name
God.
dropped him on a John Dykstra one of like, who's your SEO mentors? And I said like him, Kyle, Matt Diggity, right? And Will's like, I was like, dude, I'm gonna like hype you up as a silent partner. Like Will Tribe taught Matt Diggity SEO. Like we're just gonna keep pushing this till he has to be on a podcast. So genuinely though, he has a good article on authority builders that I think is a great starting point for anyone who's just like, what's the process of getting into this if I don't speak the language, right? So that's number one. Number two is like just start diving in via Ahrefs. Like find a niche that you're interested in. Use one that you're in now in English. Try to find the same versions in like I wouldn't go after Thai one because I don't want you to since it's my niche or it's my
Get
language.
out
But
of
like
my
you
geography.
know, I'm playing on hard mode. Like go into Spanish, go into French, go into like Portuguese, these other ones, right? And find the site, start looking, and just start doing your research. And then like look at Julian Golding's video around his French site that he did. And I think probably with those three resources, you can start to play in the foreign space and get a feeling for what that would look like.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll give away my wife's niche. So I got her into D&D recently, like Dungeons and Dragons, and so she started building a Vietnamese website for D&D. I think
I
she
love it.
put a lot of it in Vietnamese, but a lot of the monster names, like you can't translate it. And Vietnamese
Sure.
is a one syllable per word language. So there's no languages that have multiple syllables in it, or no words rather. But she gets hit up like 5 or 6 times a month with like people like, hey, so you run like a D&D group in Vietnam? Like, I'm interested. So it goes to show you the competition as legendary of a topic as that was like next to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's the thing too is like I don't know how to put it other than I think that the opportunities, like if you're thinking long term, right? So like if you're thinking like, oh, I just want to build the site and flip it really quickly, maybe it's there. But for me, my trajectory is like I'm thinking 5 years out where like I've built a legitimate brand and it's not just like, oh, we're doing affiliate now. The goal is to build a brand that if in the long term I can be like, I'm gonna white label, I'm gonna do my own products, I'm gonna do e-commerce. So you just build in the sense of like, where could this go? Because I think in many cases, the opportunities to grow and scale legitimate businesses I wouldn't say it's easier. It's definitely not easy, but the opportunity is just there in a way that may not be accessible to people otherwise in, say, like the
Yeah.
English market.
Yeah, 100%. I love that too. Like, even my friends building English sites, I tell them to do that all the time. Like, I feel like SEOs have such a superpower, and if they're monetizing just with affiliate, they're losing out on so much money. Like, display ads and affiliate are
Sure.
great, but like,
Yep.
I think everyone should follow my friend Kevin Espiritu's steps with Epic Gardening. Like, I think he did it right. He took like insanely juicy SEO traffic and parlayed that into bigger business models with a real brand. All right, my final question for you, my friend, and the hardest question. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Great, that was the question. It sounds like you're ready.
Perfect. Perfect. I'm
The-
always ready.
my final question for you is: what has been your funniest moments as you start working in the internet marketing world?
Internet marketing, I guess I can't say that one on publicly. So we'll do so let's yeah. I have a couple of them, but they're for sure. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the funniest, but like I think people have a conception, like especially my Thai staff, like the SEO community or like the digital marketing community is like these nerdy people. And we are, right? Like let's talk about D&D for like 6 hours.
Whoa, D
But
and D is not nerdy, buddy.
oh yeah, right. I love it. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm crushing like half orc barbarian all the time. But, like the community party's hard. And I think that's a funny realization when you realize like, man, these people go hard. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but I think the discovery for like when I've had people come in and be like, "Oh my god, you guys are insane." It's like, our job is like optimization, but it doesn't stop on websites. It's like, how can I have a better experience in my party at doing this, doing this? So I don't know if that covers. I guess a legitimate answer is one time with a foreign site, we built a bunch of content, we did a bunch of images, and then we got a project manager who came on and was like, these make no sense. And that's the trick, right? Is like we were getting a keyword, it was a search term people were doing, and like there's search volume around it, but the equivalent would be like it just wasn't an incomplete sentence, right? It just made no sense. Where it's like, yeah, that's what people put in to search, but he was like, if you keep this site up, people are gonna think you're insane. It doesn't make any sense. It's like four words together. It doesn't do anything. It'd be like men's shoes size 9, right? That's
Right.
still better than what we were doing. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that was a bit of an eye opener. Is like we had writers as well who like wrote the content and didn't say anything to us about that this keyword doesn't work.
If
You
I just
know,
think you're an absolute idiot, like,
it's
why
like
am I
it's
writing
fine,
this? But
it's
whatever, he's
fine.
paying me.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's in our H1, it's in our meta title, and they're like, yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it. They don't say anything. And then this is the importance of having a partner like the A player who can really take over. He came up to me and was like, hey, I don't know if this is intentional because I don't know this industry, but I need to tell you, like, anyone who's Brazilian who came to your site and saw this is going to think that you have no idea how to speak their language because it just doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a huge thing to fix, but again, that'll just emphasize to me the importance of like really having it's about the who, not the what, as you get into foreign SEO. So I think that was kind of a funny moment for us to be like, okay, glad we found you.
That is pretty hilarious. I love moments like that, man. There's so many like niche experiences I've had. There's this guy when I first started with EF, the business isn't around anymore, but he tried to sell this business where he was making like 2 grand a month selling, I think it was grilled cheese sandwiches that he would mail to your inbox on like a monthly subscription. And he was making like 2 grand a month off of it. I'm like, wow.
Fair enough.
It was like impossible to sell because it was so complex, like how he did it. And he marketed it as the Uber of grilled cheese sandwiches.
I love it, but yeah, that's an
Like,
impossible
that's
niche.
like the internet, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the amazing part too, is like, you can build business. Digging and I were talking about this recently. Is the thing is like, especially as more and more people just like get comfortable with the online space, you can build a community around anything. And I guess that would be kind of like the position I'm taking more and more now is like, what community are you addressing? So like broad sites are awesome, but if you want to build a site around D&D, this is the first time in history that you can literally build a whole site in Vietnamese around D&D. And like she could make a YouTube channel, she could start a meetup, she could probably sell products, like digital campaigns. She'd make her whole living off of that. And so I think like, yeah, get outside of the scope of like, oh, I just need to sell the high commission affiliate product. It's like,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
that's great, but like you can also build a website using your SEO skills around something that you love and figure out how to like just monetize that, like through info products, coaching, whatever you do. There's so much out there. I love it.
It's true, man. When I was at Affiliate War in Barcelona, I actually met a guy. He runs a Facebook ad agency. And one of his client makes like 30 grand a month. And it's just him. Like the client is a one person business. and that business is selling D&D one-shot campaigns. So you are
There you go.
100% correct.
Yep. Yep. Like,
The internet's an amazing place.
yeah, man. During COVID, I was playing D&D virtually because I was in lockdown. I couldn't do anything. There's nowhere to go. So I was just
Right.
like, getting onto the Discord
It's like
groups and
level
like we're
20.
just paying we're just paying dungeon masters to like do the virtual tabletops, and it was awesome. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's a
these people,
fascinating niche business as well. Like
yeah.
the professional DMs. We're getting way off topic now,
Okay,
but
fair enough.
thank you for the answers. Those were great, man. If someone wanted to connect with you and ask you, pick your brain, or ask you how can you convince Will Tribe to get on this podcast, what's the best place for them to hit you up?
Sure. So probably email for just like business queries, right? Like professional ones is going to be taylor@terrasurf.co. So Taylor at TERSURF.co. But then like you can also find, yeah, right. I have to just make sure I spelled it right in my head. Probably spelled it wrong. But then also you can just find me on Facebook, right? Like that's probably the easiest way. If you just want to get in touch, just find me on Facebook, add me there. We'll chat. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but I mean, I don't really use LinkedIn very much. So yeah, that'd be the easiest ways to get in touch with me.
Excellent, man. I only use LinkedIn to make other B2B marketers mad, apparently. My
Fair
trolling
enough.
extends even to the professional spheres. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. And for anyone out in the audience, I've known Taylor for a while. Really, really good dude. If you have any questions on foreign SEO, I'm sure you'd be more than happy to help. So thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. It was fun. Have a good one. Cheers.
There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it got you inspired at all the different things that are happening in this industry. And of course, if you just want to buy a highly profitable business, you can always go to empireflippers.com/marketplace, or maybe you want to make an exit of your highly profitable business, and you could go to empireflippers.com/sell your site. I've been your host, Greg. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review, give us a like, a follow, share it across social media. Talk to you all soon. See you on the next episode.